My name is John Carter and I'm 34 years old. My wife Linda and I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Milwaukee with our two kids, Jake, who's 8, and Emma, 6. I've been teaching history at the local high school for the past decade, while Linda works as a nurse at the hospital downtown. Overall, we've had a pretty good, normal life together as a middle-class family. At least, that's what I thought until a few months ago. It was a Friday evening in early March, and I had just gotten home from the high school around 5 p.m. The kids were excitedly telling me about their days as Linda was getting dinner ready in the kitchen. Same old routine we've had for years. After we ate, Linda said she had to run out quickly to grab a few things from the grocery store. "I'll be back in like 20 minutes, she told me, putting on her jacket. "Okay, drive safe," I replied, not thinking much of it at the time. Well, 20 minutes turned into an hour, then 2 hours. I started getting worried and tried calling her phone a few times, but it kept going straight to voicemail. The kids and I were just about to head out and look for her when Linda finally came through the front door close to 9 p.m. "I'm so sorry. My phone died and I lost track of time," she said breathlessly, like she was making up an excuse. "What took you so long?" We were getting concerned. Linda hesitated for a moment. "Oh, you know how it is. Long lines at the store. Traffic was bad. The usual." She avoided making eye contact. Something just felt off about her explanation, but I shook it off at the time, not wanting to ruin the night with an argument in front of the kids. We got them into bed, and that was that. Except it wasn't. Over the next few days, I noticed Linda being way more protective over her phone than usual. She'd walk away to take calls, delete texts right after reading them, just weird behavior I hadn't seen from her before. My gut told me something sketchy was going on. Then came the night that shattered my world. It was a Friday again, probably 2 weeks after that weird grocery store incident. Linda was finishing up a night shift at the hospital, so I figured I'd have a couple hours alone at home to myself. The kids were over at a friend's house for a sleepover. I was just lounging on the couch watching TV when Linda's phone started buzzing on the end table. She had forgotten it at home, which was unusual for her. Acting on pure instinct, I picked it up and saw a series of texts from a number I didn't recognize. The messages were explicit, to say the least, talking about getting together that night for fun after Linda got off work. My heart immediately sank. I felt physically sick, like I'd been punched in the gut. Tears welled up in my eyes as I kept reading through the entire conversation thread, putting the pieces together. Linda was having an affair with some random guy, and from the sounds of it, this wasn't just some random fling, it had been going on for a while. John paused, trying to catch his breath as the revelations hit him again. Who is this guy? How could Linda do this to me, to our family? Just then, Linda came through the front door, stopping in her tracks when she saw the pained look on John's face and her phone in his hand. "John, I can explain," Linda said, trembling, frozen in the doorway. I just stared at her, clutching her phone, my mind racing. All the little signs over the past few weeks suddenly made sense. The late nights, the secrecy, the defensive behavior around her phone, it all pointed to her having this affair behind my back. "Explain what exactly?" I said, trying and failing to keep my voice from shaking with anger and hurt. "That you've been sneaking around, lying to me and the kids, sleeping with some other guy." Linda opened and closed her mouth, struggling for words. Tears welled up in her eyes. "It's not. I didn't mean for this to happen. It just kind of happened. It just happened." I scoffed in disbelief. "Who is he? Do I even know this person?" She hesitated before responding in a small voice. It's David. From the high school. We've been seeing each other for a few months now. My head spun as she confirmed my worst fears. David taught English across the hall from my classroom. I considered him a friend, someone I trusted around my kids. And now I find out he's been screwing my wife this whole time. The ultimate betrayal. I can't believe this. After everything we've been through, the marriage, the kids, my voice rose in anger as I threw her phone on the couch. What about our vows, Linda? Did those mean anything to you? Of course they did, she cried, taking a step towards me. You have to believe I never wanted to hurt you like this. It just happened, with David and I getting so close, and you being gone at school all day. Don't you dare try to blame this on me, I snapped, feeling my face flush red. I have poured my heart and soul into this family for years, and you repay me by cheating and lying through your teeth. Linda opened her mouth to respond but seemed to think better of it, silent tears streaming down her face. An uncomfortable quiet hung in the air, thick with tension and heartbreak. Finally, I sighed, suddenly feeling drained of all energy. I can't even look at you right now. Get out of my sight. John, please. Gio, I shouted, startling her. She flinched but listened, grabbing her purse and walking back out the door, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I stood there alone in the living room, hands clenched into fists, my entire world feeling like it had been flipped upside down. Waves of anger, sadness, disbelief, it all washed over me at once to the point I could barely process it all. How could this be happening? What did I do to deserve getting my heart shattered like this? Most of all, how was I going to be able to face the kids and explain this mess? I felt sick just thinking about their little innocent faces and the pain this would inevitably bring them. Sleep didn't come at all that night. I just tossed and turned in bed, replaying every moment with Linda in my mind, searching for any sign or red flag I might have missed about the affair. My head and heart were at war with each other over whether I should forgive and try to make this work or pack up and leave. Escape kept sounding more and more tempting with each passing hour. The next few days after discovering Linda's affair were some of the darkest of my life. I felt emotionally numb, going through the motions at work and putting on a brave face for Jake and Emma's sake when they were around. But the second I was alone, the harsh reality would come crashing back down on me in waves. How could she betray me like this? After over a decade of marriage, of building a life and family together, the burning anger and sadness were so overwhelming at times, I didn't know what to do with myself. I'd find myself zoning out for hours, my mind spiraling as I replayed every possible sign, every moment when Linda was likely lying to my face about where she was or who she was with. I knew I needed to talk to someone, to get out of my own head for a bit. Opening up has never been my strong suit, but this pit of despair was starting to swallow me whole. So one night while the kids were at a friend's house, I gave my best friend Mark a call and broke down sobbing as I unloaded everything to him. "Dude, I'm so sorry, man," he said once I'd calmed down a little. "Linda cheating, that's... I can't even imagine how you must be feeling right now. The anger, the sadness, questioning your whole reality." I sniffed hard, nodding even though he couldn't see me. Exactly. It's like my world has been shattered into a million pieces. Who can I even trust anymore if not my own wife, you know? "Look, you have every right to feel however you want about this," Mark continued. "But please, don't hesitate to lean on me and the guys for support. We're here for you every step of the way as you start to pick up the pieces and figure out what's next, whether that's couples counseling or separating." His words were both comforting and sobering at the same time. Was my marriage of 12 years really at that kind of make or break crossroads because of Linda's unfaithfulness? I didn't have an answer to that yet. All I knew was the solid ground I thought I was standing on had crumbled into an unstable, unknown future. Mark wasn't the only supportive voice in my life during this nightmare season. Over the next few weeks, I began meeting regularly with a counselor to help process the tidal wave of emotions. Mrs. Rodriguez was kind and insightful as she guided me through stages of grief, from denial and anger to sadness, and eventually being able to look at the situation with a bit more clarity. The lies and betrayal by someone you loved. It's a huge trauma, she said one day as I slumped in the oversized chair across from her recliner. But you can't let it consume and define you. Right now you're being bombarded by what ifs and how could she's. It's natural to get stuck in those loops. Just keep taking it day by day and be patient with yourself. Her advice was spot on. By opening up to a few close friends and family and being totally transparent about my inner demons, the burden became somewhat lighter. Reading books on infidelity and investing in new hobbies like golfing also provided small bright spots to cling to amid the darkness. Little by little, the clouds started parting. I was able to look at the situation with Linda a bit more objectively and begin mapping out what came next, even if I wasn't totally sure yet what that would look like. Separating and filing for divorce. Trying to make counseling work if she was willing. Getting answers to the endless questions swirling in my mind. No matter what I chose, this much was clear. I didn't deserve the hell I'd been put through, but by leaning on my support system and taking it day by day, that inner voice calling me a broken mess was gradually being overshadowed by a resilient spirit battling to rise up from the wreckage. Despite the immense pain and anger from Linda's betrayal, I knew I needed to put on a brave face for Jake and Emma's sake. Kids their age shouldn't have to be dragged into the messiness of adult problems and divorces. So in the weeks after the affair came to light, I made every effort to keep their lives as normal and stable as possible. Of course, that was easier said than done. With Linda having moved into her own apartment downtown, near the hospital, we now had to navigate this new world of split custody and shuffling the kids back and forth between two homes. Almost immediately, tensions flared. "But Dad, I don't want to go to Mom's this weekend," Jake whined one Friday evening as I helped him pack an overnight bag. "She's always working late and we never get to do anything fun." I forced a reassuring smile, ruffling his hair. "I know, buddy, but you know the rules. You and Emma have to split time between our places. I'll try to talk to your mom about it, okay?" Emma piped up from the couch. "Are you and Mommy getting a divorce? That's what Jesse's parents did, and now she lives in two houses." My heart twisted at her innocent question. We hadn't officially filed yet, mainly because I was still grappling with whether to give Linda another chance if she got serious about rebuilding the trust. But I also knew lying to the kids would only make things harder. "Your mom and we're going through some tough stuff right now," I said carefully, crouching down to their level. "We might end up living apart for a while. But no matter what, just remember, we both love you two more than anything, okay?" Their little faces clouded with worry broke my heart into pieces all over again. Was this really the legacy I wanted for my kids, caught in the middle of their parents' broken marriage because one of us hadn't honored our vows? The guilt weighed heavily. Linda tried to make an effort those first few weeks after moving out. She'd take the kids out for activities, have sleepovers at her place, the usual co-parenting stuff. But I could sense her mind was elsewhere. The long hours at work, the lingering feelings between us about the affair. It was putting a strain on everyone. One night after dropping Jake and Emma back at my place, Linda and I ended up in a heated argument out in the driveway, away from their eyes and ears. "You're never present when you're with them, Linda," I said through gritted teeth, trying to keep my voice down. "Your damn job always comes first. Don't you dare try and question how much I care about our kids," she shot back, furious. "In case you've forgotten, I have to work insane hours to pay for this separate place since you fired the divorce rocket before we could talk things through." I threw my hands up in exasperation. "There's nothing to talk through. You slept with another man and lied to me for months about it. What's there to discuss?" Linda's face flushed red, but she seemed to deflate, the anger leaving her body. You're right. I screwed up in the worst way. I'll try harder, I promise." She turned and got into her car, leaving me standing there feeling both victorious and utterly defeated at the same time. In those first months, pretty much every interaction with Linda was laced with passive-aggressive jabs, lingering resentments, and miscommunications about who had the kids when. We were stuck in this toxic cycle of lashing out at each other, unable to move forward as co-parents because the cheating bomb had blown everything up. I knew we couldn't go on like this. For Jake and Emma's sake, if nothing else, something had to give. I just didn't know what yet. The months that followed were some of the most emotionally draining of my entire life. Co-parenting with Linda felt like this constant push-pull of making progress one day, only to get set back by another blowout argument or miscommunication the next. The strain was really starting to show on Jake and Emma. "Why can't you and Mom just get along?" Jake pleaded with me one evening as I driving them back from Linda's place. He had this perpetually worried look on his face, like he was carrying the weight of the world on those little shoulders. I glanced in the rearview mirror, feeling a pang of guilt. "It's complicated, buddy. Your mom and I are still working through a lot of heavy stuff from our past. But I promise you, we're trying our best, okay?" Emma chimed in quietly from the backseat. "I miss when we were all together." Those words sliced straight through my heart. As much as I still loved Linda, and as hard as I was trying to forgive and move forward, the memory of her affair just kept reopening fresh wounds. Every time I was around her, I couldn't help but get flashes of her lying, sneaking around, betraying my trust in the worst way possible. It made having a normal, friendly co-parenting dynamic almost impossible. Things came to a head a few months after she moved out. I was dropping Jake and Emma back at my place after their weekend with Linda, and she barely acknowledged me, too busy yammering away on her phone to offer so much as a hello, or thanks for picking them up. I could feel my blood pressure spiking as she continued to prioritize work over simple common courtesy. "Hey," I said, trying to get her attention once she'd hung up. "Can I at least get 2 minutes of your time to talk about the kids?" Linda sighed in exasperation, not even looking at me. "What is it, John?" "It's about next weekend. Jake's birthday party. Did you forget?" "Oh, no, I have it marked down," she replied dismissively. "I'll try to get off work early, but no guarantees." "No guarantees?" I echoed incredulously. "Linda, this is our son's 9th birthday we're talking about here. For once, can you just put the family first and commit to being there for him?" That made her head snap up, anger flashing in her eyes. "Don't you dare try to question how much I care about our kids. Or did you forget about that little affair of yours already?" My jaw dropped as she immediately went for the low blow. "Are you serious right now? You're the one who cheated and wrecked our family. But of course, poor Linda is the victim as always. Just forget it." She turned and stormed off towards her car, leaving me fuming on the front lawn with the kids looking on in confusion and shock. I can't tell you how many times scenes just like that played out over the next year or so. The divorce proceedings only made tensions worse, even when we both made efforts to put Jake and Emma first. My emotions constantly ricocheted between missing the family we once were, wanting to fix things, but then feeling that intense anger and resentment boiling over every time Linda and I were in the same room. It was starting to become clear we'd never be able to move forward like this. Something needed to change, one way or the other. Ultimately, Linda and I made the difficult decision to finalize our divorce. As much as I loved her, and as hard as we tried to make co-parenting work, the damage from her affair was just too deep. The trust, respect, and intimacy we once had could never be fully rebuilt. That's not to say the process was easy by any means. The legal proceedings dragged on for what felt like forever as we hashed out custody agreements, splitting assets and debts, and came to terms with the fact that we'd no longer be a family unit anymore. Lots of late nights spent angrily venting to friends or anxiously tossing and turning as my mind raced with worst-case scenarios. But looking back now, nearly 2 years after that fateful discovery, I realize how far I've come in reclaiming my sense of self-worth and resilience. The John from a few years ago felt so broken, so lost in the depths of betrayal. Nowadays, I wake up with a sense of peace and control over my life again. Don't get me wrong, the road getting here was brutal and lonely at times. There was the grief of mourning my marriage, bouts of questioning if I was a failure as a husband, and so much residual anger towards Linda that I had to work hard to process. Counseling was huge, as was leaning on my awesome support system of friends and family who reminded me that I didn't deserve to have my life turned upside down like that. My kids, Jake and Emma, were also a constant source of perspective, strength, and joy amid the darkness. Seeing their smiling faces pushed me to be the best dad I could be, to pour my energy into creating a positive environment and childhood memories despite the divorce. Has it been perfect co-parenting with Linda these past couple of years? Of course not. We've had our fair share of blow-ups, miscommunications, and lingering tensions. Getting wrapped up in a legal battle and having to split time with kids is just plain hard. But I've found that as long as I stay focused on Jake and Emma's best interests and respond to Linda's intakes with grace rather than getting dragged into drama, things tend to run a lot smoother. She's finally starting to understand that I'm not going anywhere as their dad. I've even started dipping my toes back into the dating world recently, which is both exciting and terrifying at the same time, if I'm being honest. A big part of me will always love Linda deeply as the mother of my children and my partner for over a decade, but I've realized that I deserve to be cherished by someone who can be fully invested in me, who values loyalty and open communication like I do. Only time will tell if that special someone is still out there. More than anything, this whole nightmare scenario has only fortified my resilience, integrity, and appreciation for the simple joys in life: quality time with my kids, a peaceful morning routine, connecting with good friends who have my back. I'm no longer the John who felt destroyed by heartbreak. I've rebounded stronger, more self-aware, and not taking any day for granted. So to anyone out there going through a separation, divorce, cheating situation, I hear you, I see you. Take it from me that you can and will get through this torrential emotional storm, one step at a time. The path forward won't be easy, but as long as you muster the courage to stay true to yourself and what you value most, you'll make it through. You've got this. What resonated with you most about John's journey of resilience and personal growth after infidelity shattered his world? What lessons or insights did his story provide about moving forward when life throws you unimaginable curveballs? Thanks as always for watching. Subscribe to our channel, give us a like, share our story. See you soon with a new exciting story.